Chapter 36. Gabble and the others were assembled at the sealed cave's magic circle, waiting for us. The moment he saw me, Gabble ran up, looking visibly relieved. "Oh, Lady Rimuru, you are safe." His voice echoed with genuine relief. I gave him a small nod, still mentally regrouping after everything that had happened. He quickly launched into his report. And then, just after we received word that Lady Milam would wage war against the Beast Kingdom of Urizania in a week's time, I lost contact with Sir Benimaru. Concerned, I made contact with Sokka, but apparently no one outside the cave could reach our leaders, either. A war between Milam and Carrion. That didn't sit right with me at all. I kept silent. There were too many threads now tangled together, and I needed to sort them out one by one. "And Tempest itself?" I asked quietly. Gabble's expression darkened. "There's no confirmation of any damage, but there's been no response from anyone within the capital. It's like the entire city just went dark. So even the communication links were down. It was the same effect I felt during my battle with Hinata, cut off from Ranga and the others. Someone had cast a large-scale barrier over the entire region. No doubt about it." Ciel's voice echoed calmly in my mind. "Understood. This may be a multi-layered interference-type barrier. It likely overlaps with a holy field-like effect. The objective seems to be isolation and magical suppression. This was a coordinated move, not random aggression. My thoughts exactly. Whoever was behind this was targeting us with precision." "All right," I murmured, eyes fixed on the swirling light of the teleportation circle. No more hesitating. That mysterious presence from the forest might have let me go, but Tempest wasn't guaranteed the same mercy. "I told King Gazel as well," Vester added, stepping forward with a worried frown. "But it was hard for us to make any concrete moves, given the lack of information at hand." That made sense. Even the king of the armed nation of Dworgen would be hesitant to act without knowing what he was up against. Certainly, Gazel must have been terribly concerned. He wasn't the type to ignore signs of a crisis. "We last made contact via communication crystal about an hour ago," Vester continued, "but nothing since. We were expecting a second call, but it never came." I nodded slowly, processing the implications. That meant the interference reached even as far as international channels. The thought communication network was cut off too, and just as they were beginning to debate what action to take, I had arrived. Lucky timing, or maybe fate nudging me back just in time. Still, if communication was being blocked this thoroughly, it wasn't just an isolated attack. It was a carefully planned operation, and Tempest was the target. I clenched my fists. "I'm going back," I said quietly. Immediately. No hesitation. And no more mercy, either. As I mulled things over, a flicker of movement caught my attention. Then Soe leapt out from my shadow, silent as a whisper. Just behind him, Sokka and several others emerged from Gabble's. "Lady Rimuru," Soe said as he knelt, his face pale and drawn. "It is a tremendous relief to see you safe and sound." He was clearly worn down, his uniform stained and torn, his breathing shallow. Even Soe, the ever-composed shadow, looked like he'd been through hell. "I'm more worried about you," I said, stepping toward him. "You're in worse shape than me." Vester immediately ran over with a full potion, which Soe accepted and drank wordlessly. "The moment you vanished behind the barrier," he said after a breath, "our connection was severed. I couldn't reach you, not through shadows, not through thought communication. I feared the worst." I lowered my gaze. For a moment. "So that's when he lost contact." "Forgive me for interrupting," Sokka added, her tone calm but firm. "Sir Soe sustained those injuries while attempting to breach the barrier surrounding Tempest. He did all he could to escape it and report back." I clenched my fists. That cursed barrier again, hurting my people, severing our bonds, isolating us one by one. Whoever cast it wasn't just trying to trap me, they were trying to cripple all of us. The story he had for me was a shock. "There's a military force from Farmus," Soe said gravely, marching straight toward Tempest. "Their numbers are significant, at least 30,000 strong." I froze for a moment. 30,000? Why now? Soe caught wind of this through our outer scouts, Sokka added. He immediately attempted to return and inform Sir Benimaru, but that's when the barrier around town activated. "Yeah," Soe said with his usual calm. "I tried to get through it myself, but no luck. One of my replication bodies collided with the outer rim and was destroyed on contact. My real body got away with just an injury." Only Soe would casually brush off nearly dying like that. He made it sound like a scraped knee. "All his replications were lost in the attempt," Sokka went on. He returned here to regroup, and we were preparing to force our way through when we saw you teleport here. So they were ready to throw themselves into danger just to reach me. I bit my lip. Thanks, Soe, I said. You did everything you could. I'm proud of you. He gave a slight bow, though the tension hadn't left his eyes. We all knew what this meant. Pharmus wasn't just marching on us. They were coming in full force, and someone had made sure I wouldn't be there to stop it. Looks like they've been planning this for a while, I muttered, clenching my fists. Separating me from Tempest, cutting off communications, whoever's behind this wants us crushed. My expression hardened, but I was back now. And I wasn't going to let anyone destroy what I'd built. I launched spatial motion without further explanation, connecting our current location with a point just outside the barrier. A hole tore open in the air, just large enough for a person to slip through. Our target shimmered on the other side. Convenient but unsettling. The cave's in your hands, Gabble. Yes, my lady, I will await further orders. Gabble dropped to one knee with a sharp salute. His men followed suit, their expressions solemn. Good, I had to trust them to hold things here. Without hesitation, I stepped through the portal. The air shifted. The heavy magic of the sealed cave vanished behind me, replaced by the unnatural stillness pressing around Tempest. Just outside the barrier now. The atmosphere was tense, too quiet. Soe emerged next, his face unreadable, but I could sense his focus sharpen the moment he took in the surroundings. Soka and the others weren't as composed. Even trained elites like them were visibly uneasy. Spatial travel wasn't exactly smooth if you weren't used to it. Still, they did well. I wished I could explain things better, help ease the tension in the group, but right now, that was a luxury I didn't have. We're here. Whatever's waiting for us inside that barrier, it's time to face it. Soe, I said sharply, track down whoever's casting this barrier. I need to take them out before we can do anything else. Do not engage in combat. Just gather your men and assess their strength. Yes, my lady, he replied at once. How should we maintain contact? I reached into my storage and pulled out a strand of sticky steel thread, wrapping one end gently around his neck like a choker. Use this. Run your thought communication through the thread. It should let us link up, even through the barrier. Soe gave a small nod. Understood. We tested it quickly and sure enough, the connection worked. The barrier blocked most forms of magic, but apparently, if the spell ran along a physical medium like the thread, it slipped right through. Good. That'll give us some room to move. Be careful, I added, my voice quiet. He vanished into the shadows without another word. Now, all I could do was wait and prepare. There were still faint traces of magicules in the air around town, nowhere near as much as before, but enough to notice. If not for the anti-magic area suppressing everything, basic magic might have been possible. Ciel's analysis was spot on. With multi-layer barriers still active, I didn't feel any of the usual interference. Compared to Holy Field, this barrier was significantly weaker, and thank goodness for that. I hurried through the familiar streets of Tempest, heading straight for the main office near the central plaza. As soon as I turned the corner, I was met with a dense crowd gathered in the square. Dozens of townspeople stood together under an air of heavy unease. The moment someone noticed me, a wave of realization swept through the crowd. Lady Rimuru. The words rippled outward. In an instant, people parted to clear a path for me, dropping to their knees with a mixture of awe and relief. Then I saw them, figures I knew well, breaking away from the still kneeling crowd and rushing toward me. Rigurd led the way, his aged legs moving faster than I thought possible. Rigur, Lilina, and several hobgoblin elders followed close behind. Lady Rimuru, Rigurd cried, skidding to a stop in front of me. He dropped to his knees, grasping at the hem of my skirt with trembling hands. His voice was strained, barely holding itself together. It is wonderful to see you back. We feared the worst. Before I could reply, a composed voice spoke up behind him. Welcome home, Lady Rimuru. Ren appeared beside us, stepping forward with practiced grace. She wore her traditional black and white maid outfit, pressed, polished, and pristine, as if the chaos of the past hours had never touched her. Her gloved hands were folded neatly in front of her, her posture flawless, her expression composed. A perfect maid, but I knew her too well. Even behind that mask of calm, I could see at the brief glimmer in her violet eyes, the ever so subtle shift in her stance. She was relieved. I'm sorry I worried all of you, I said softly, my gaze moving from Rigurd to Ren. But I made it back. I promise it's going to be all right. Follow me to our meeting room, if you could, Rigurd said, steadying his voice as he stood up. His hands were still trembling slightly, but he masked it with resolve. His usual bold demeanor returned, firm and composed. There are things I wish to report and discuss with you. I nodded, but the air around us felt heavier than before. Everyone's expressions were tight, cautious, and shadowed with grief. I already knew. Even before I returned, Seal had told me everything. The number of deaths, the names, the faces, all of them, my people. Gone, while I had been away. I didn't let it show, but the knowledge sat deep in my chest like a cold stone. Rhaegar turned, leading us toward one of the smaller administrative buildings tucked behind the plaza. It made sense he didn't want this discussed in public. But as I followed, a loud boom rolled through the streets. The ground trembled beneath us. I stopped in my tracks. That aura, my golden eyes sharpened. Benimaru, I whispered, he's fighting someone. Even through the weakened magical levels, the pressure from his flames was unmistakable. This wasn't a scuffle or a warning shot, this was real. He's serious. Let's go. I didn't wait for a response. My foot hit the ground, launching me forward. Behind me, Ren kept pace, her presence silent but solid. As I feared, Benimaru was already in the middle of a fight, or rather, something far more one-sided. The air cracked with the heat of his magicals. He hadn't drawn his sword, but it didn't matter, his presence alone was blazing like wildfire, radiating fury. Around him stood a squad of high orcs, all clad in sharp black armor, unmoving. Geld stood at the front, watching with clenched fists. He was usually calm, disciplined. Right now, even he was on edge. And at the center of that pressure stood their target, Gruchith, one of Carolon's men. That alone confused me. Why would a Beastketeer's subordinate draw Benimaru's wrath? Then I saw it. Yone was lying collapsed behind Gruchith. A beautiful woman I didn't recognize knelt beside him, holding him close. She looked terrified, trying to shield his unconscious form. Gruchith stood protectively in front of them, arms spread. He wasn't attacking, he was defending. Benimaru's voice rumbled low, his tone restrained but dangerous. You seek to protect this woman, too? He asked, his aura flaring again. We don't have time for this right now. Get out of here at once. Gruchith grinned, a strange mix of nerves and stubbornness. Hey, can't do that. No way I'd hand her over when all of you are so worked up like this. He was trying to buy time, or maybe just calm things down. But Benimaru was seconds from losing all patience. Gruchith charged. In a blink, his body transformed, gray fur sprouting, claws gleaming. Twin daggers in hand, he rushed Benimaru with bestial speed, far surpassing what he showed against Yome. I told you to give it up. The daggers struck Benimaru's aura and vanished on contact. Gruchith froze. Benimaru caught him with one hand, lifted him like a rag doll, and slammed him into the ground with a sickening thud. Cracks split the earth. Blood spread. Benimaru still hadn't drawn his sword. Even so, Gruchith staggered back to his feet. But I'm still. Enough of this nonsense. If you continue to resist me, I will kill you. You understand? He moved again, ready to finish it. That is enough, Sir Benimaru. The voice was calm, but it cut like frost. Ren stepped forward. She bowed slightly toward Benimaru, then addressed him in that polished, unfeeling tone of hers. I would rather not have such an insignificant creature perish before Lady Rimuru's eyes. He's hardly worth staining the air around her. Oof. Insignificant creature, huh, that's just so like Ren. Even in a situation like this, she's perfectly in character, true to her role as my ever-flawless maid. I don't know if I should be amazed, or worried. Benimaru stopped mid-motion. He glanced at her, then at me. I gave him a small nod. He sighed, lowering his hand. Ren took a quiet step back, having said all that was needed. As usual, her presence did more than most battle cries ever could. Noticing me, Benimaru promptly let Gruchith go. The beastman slumped to his knees, the oppressive aura surrounding him dissipating instantly. The tension hanging in the air dispersed like mist, and the crowd began to stir. Geld and the others lowered their stances, eyes lighting up with visible relief at my return. But more pressing were Yome and Gruchith, both clearly in need of healing. As I stepped forward and administered potions to the injured, I turned to Benimaru. Benimaru, what is going on here? Well, my lady, he began, voice steady. A group of individuals disguised as merchants attempted to assault the town. They were far stronger than anticipated, and chaos quickly broke out. Then, we suddenly lost access to magic, and our strength was drained. Because of that, the people in town were. That will do. Ren's voice cut in calm, crystalline, and Precise, carrying the unmistakable grace of one who expects obedience. She stepped forward, her posture immaculate, expression composed to perfection. Lady Rimuru does not require a report sullied with grief and confusion in front of the rabble. If you must speak of what was lost, do so in a proper setting, not here in the dust and noise. The way she said it not here left no room for argument. Not from Benimaru. Not from anyone. Benimaru met her gaze, then slowly nodded. Understood. I will report in detail, later. Even now, she was flawlessly maintaining her perfect maid persona, graceful, unwavering, and composed. She silenced Benimaru with a single glance, concealing the truth not for my sake. She's hiding their deaths, because she doesn't want me to carry that weight right now. That quiet consideration, wrapped in authority and elegance, gave me a small ripple of comfort amid the turmoil. Geld, stepping in for Benimaru, offered the next part. The source of the magic disruption came from that woman over there. I attempted to apprehend her, but Yom intervened. A clash was inevitable. I turned my gaze toward the unconscious pair. The woman, I didn't recognize her, but if Yom went so far to protect her, she wasn't just anyone. Just then, a rejuvenated Yom threw himself down at my feet, his forehead pressing against the ground. Rimuru, I'm sorry. I had no intention of betraying you, none at all. I just wanted to protect Majoran's life. His voice trembled not with fear, but with honest guilt. He wasn't trying to shift the blame. He was just speaking from the heart. Majoran, the woman who had been silently observing until now, finally stepped forward. Her expression was calm, but shadowed by grief. Enough, Yom, she said quietly. Please, just abandon me. There's no need for you to suffer because of me. Despite her composed tone, I could sense the pain behind her words, like she'd already accepted punishment and was only hoping to spare Yom. Then Gruchith, still battered and bruised, lowered himself to the ground beside Yom, his head bowed. Please, Lady Rimuru, he said, voice steady despite his injuries. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But I beg you just give her a chance to explain herself. Two men, both throwing themselves before me for the sake of one woman. ... And somehow, I already knew I wasn't going to walk away from this without hearing her out. Benimaru and the others looked visibly disgusted. Their rage had cooled somewhat with my return, but the tension in the air still hadn't lifted. Even Geld, normally composed, stood rigid, fists clenched. That told me enough. Whatever happened while I was away wasn't just a skirmish. It had cut deep, but I couldn't pass judgment without hearing everything. I needed the full story. Majoran stepped forward, her expression distant, guilt-ridden. No, Yom, no, Gruchith, I have no right to be protected by either of you. Who can say how much this town has lost because of me? I was the one who engineered this tragedy. Rigurd flinched. Benimaru turned his eyes away. Kaijin fell silent, lips drawn into a tight line. This tragedy, I already knew. They didn't have to say it. I could feel the weight in the air, the emptiness. People had died. And now, Majoran was going to speak the truth they were all trying to shield me from. But as she opened her mouth again, something shifted. Ren, she hadn't spoken a word, simply standing behind me in her perfectly composed posture, hands folded, expression calm, the picture of a dutiful maid. But now, she took one silent step forward, her violet eyes narrowing with icy disdain. She said nothing, yet the meaning in her gaze was unmistakable. An insignificant creature has no place speaking before my lady. Majoran visibly faltered, her voice catching for the briefest moment as that silent judgment washed over her. But Ren didn't act. She merely stepped back into place, flawless as ever. Even in a moment like this, she held fast to her role. That unwavering loyalty, it was comforting, but also a sharp reminder of just how far she'd go for my sake. Majoran recoiled slightly, saying nothing more. What do you mean by tragedy? I asked softly, breaking the silence. At once, I felt a shift beside me. Ren didn't speak, but I caught the barely perceptible twitch of her brow, the way her gloved fingers tensed ever so slightly at her sides. She didn't want Majoran to answer. That much was clear, but she didn't stop her, either. As always, Ren maintained her perfect maid persona, serene, elegant, silent. Obedient to me, even when her instincts screamed otherwise. She looked at Majoran with a subtle but unmistakable coldness, as if warning her that the privilege of speaking before me was not to be taken lightly. Still, she said nothing. Majoran looked between us, saw Ren's glare, saw my calm gaze and gave a resigned nod. Follow me, she said at last, turning away. She was headed for the plaza in the middle of town, the place they'd tried to keep me from reaching. And I already knew what I'd find there. Seal had told me everything. The number, the names, the faces, 100 of my people. I knew, I had known, but, even knowing couldn't prepare me for this. They were there, lying silently under the open sky, lined up with care, as if someone had tried to preserve their dignity. I walked forward, the world around me muted, distant. And then I saw her. A little girl, no older than 6, maybe 7. Her small hands were curled into fists. Her eyes were closed. Her hair was still adorned with tiny ribbons, now dulled with dust. I knelt beside her, slowly, wordlessly. This was too much. Seal had shown me her name, her family. She'd been one of the first to die. But now, face to face with her still form, I felt something crack inside me. I knew you were gone, I whispered. But seeing you like this, hurts more than I imagined. My hand hovered above her forehead, trembling. There was no warmth left in her skin. No fear, no peace. Just silence. I promised I'd protect you, I murmured, the words barely forming. All of you. And I failed. My voice caught. I bowed my head, eyes closed, not in prayer, but in apology. I'm sorry. There were no tears. I didn't have that luxury. But the ache in my chest, it stayed. And I knew it wouldn't leave. Not until I made things right. One of the hobgoblin elders lowered his head, voice trembling. We followed your wishes, Lady Rimuru, and treated the merchants with kindness and civility. We had no idea there was evil among their ranks. Before he could finish, Ren stepped forward sharply. Her tone was composed, but the quiet steel in her voice left no room for doubt. Watch your words. Do not speak so carelessly in front of my lady. The elder flinched and turned to her, bowing deeply. My deepest apologies, Lady Ren. Ren's gaze didn't soften in the slightest. You should apologize to my lady. I took a quiet step forward. It's all right, I said softly. You were only speaking the truth as you saw it. My voice was calm, too calm, maybe. I wasn't angry. How could I be? If anything, I understood. But that didn't make it hurt any less. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I wasn't here when it mattered most. I failed all of you. The elder's eyes widened at my reply. He knelt lower, pressing his forehead to the ground. And no, Lady Rimuru. Please, you mustn't say such things. We, this nation, exist because of your guidance. We only live because of your grace. No one here blames you. We would never. The other elders and townspeople bowed their heads in unison, their voices echoing softly with murmurs of, never, and, she's not to blame. Even though their words trembled, I could feel their sincerity. I stood there quietly, trying to process it all, this mixture of grief and loyalty that hung thick in the air. At my side, Ren bowed her head slightly as well, hand elegantly folded over her chest in a perfectly practiced motion. Such devotion is only natural, she said coolly, her voice like still water. My lady's presence alone brings purpose to this land. I glanced at her out of the corner of my eye. Her posture was flawless as ever. Her voice held the same composed tone she always used in public. And yet, her fingers were curled just a bit too tightly. She was angry, not just at the elder's words but at the situation. At everything. But she held it all behind her perfect mask, like always. I didn't say anything, I just let her stay that way. A torrent of regret, a wellspring of anger with no place to go, was gushing out of me. It was hard to think. Even without the need to breathe, I could feel my chest tightening like I was suffocating on nothing but grief. My heart didn't beat, but the sensation of it pounding wildly echoed through me. I was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer force of everything crashing into me at once. It didn't feel real. I'd prepared, I'd made plans, I'd tried to protect them, and still this. For a moment, I nearly lost control, my form beginning to blur, flicker, shift. I was slipping, the core of me unraveling. It would have been so easy to collapse there, to sink into the ground and vanish. But I couldn't allow that. Not here, not now. I gritted my teeth, forced myself still. I had to remain stable. I had to think. Mistakes had already been made, I couldn't let another one be born from me. What happened here? My voice felt like it wasn't mine, cold, detached, hollow. It drifted out of me like fog, distant and numb. I barely recognized the sound. It was as if something in me had frozen over, locking all the emotion deep inside. Majoran's voice trembled. If I hadn't cast that great magic, none of this would have happened. So she was the one who started it all. Benimaru's fury, Geld's tension, it all made sense now. A sharp ache welled up in my chest. My thoughts twisted into a storm. I couldn't think straight. Master. Ciel's voice reached me, soft and grounding, like her hand resting gently on mine. That magic didn't directly weaken them. The real cause lies with the one Soe is tracking. Right, calm down. This woman Majoran, she was trying to provoke me. Trying to direct all the blame onto herself, to shield Yeoman Gruchith from the consequences. A calculated attempt to control where my anger landed. I knew that. I understood it. As long as I kept my cool. Killing her wouldn't bring anyone back. It would just be me, throwing my pain at the nearest target. It wouldn't fix anything. I felt Ciel's presence stir within me, quiet, watchful, steady. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Just knowing she was there, that was enough. Thanks to her, I didn't make another mistake. Let's talk. Somewhere else. We couldn't stand here grieving forever. There was still more to uncover. As we began to move, I asked quietly, Rigurd, any other victims? He bowed his head. No, my lady, all of them have been gathered here. There are others injured, but Lady Shuna is tending to them. The room was quiet, too quiet. Everyone else was preparing for the meeting, but I remained alone in my office, the weight of recent events pressing down on me. I stood there, lost in thought, unable to shake the images from my mind. Then, I felt her presence, familiar and gentle. Ciel appeared behind me without a word. I turned and quickly wrapped my arms around her. No barriers, no hesitation, just us. Ciel, I whispered. She held me tightly, her touch steady and warm. After a moment, she moved gracefully and sat on the edge of the desk, positioning herself so that my face could rest against her chest. I leaned into her soft chest, my cheek pressing gently there. The warmth and softness were comforting beyond words, like sinking into the gentlest cloud, soothing and calm, quieting the turmoil inside me. Her arm wrapped around my head, pulling me closer as she patted my hair softly. With each gentle stroke, she drew me even nearer to that softness, as if to shield me from everything else. Tears slipped quietly down my cheeks as I let myself be vulnerable for a moment, her fingers softly running through my hair. You did everything you could, Master, she said softly. You came back, you cared. That's what matters. Is it enough? I asked, voice breaking. It is, she assured me, pulling me closer. You're not alone. I closed my eyes, comforted by her presence, letting the quiet embrace soothe the storm inside me. Then, a soft knock interrupted us. My lady, Ren's voice came from the door. The meeting is about to start. The door opened, and Ren stepped inside, her calm gaze briefly taking in the scene. I wasn't aware I was interrupting a bonus event, she remarked deadpan, but I won't say more. And then she left. Ciel stood and smoothly adjusted her posture, wearing her mask, now ready to face the others. Let's go, I said quietly, wiping my eyes. Together, we left the room to join the others. By the time we stepped into the meeting room, the air inside was heavy with unease, tension tightly wound like a string about to snap. The various leaders of Tempest had already gathered, seated in a semicircle around the long table. Their eyes turned toward me the moment I entered, silent, waiting. I walked forward with Ciel beside me, calm and composed as always. She now wore her usual attire, a perfectly pressed black and white maid uniform, and as she entered the room, she had already slipped her mask back on without a word. She stood a respectful step behind me, hands folded gracefully in front. Ren was already standing to the side of the room, the very picture of discipline. When her eyes met mine, she gave a small bow and turned toward the others. Before we begin, she said, her voice refined yet commanding, allow me to clarify something, since I'm certain the question may arise. Her tone remained smooth and perfectly measured, her maid persona in full effect. The reason Lady Ciel was not present earlier is due to a personal errand I entrusted her with. I trust no one will question the priorities of my lady's personal attendance. There was not a hint of hesitation in her voice. The room acknowledged her explanation with quiet nods. No one pressed further. Benimaru, seated near the front, folded his arms and watched in silence, a storm of emotion still roiling beneath his composed expression. With Ren's statement closing the matter, I took my seat at the head of the table. Everyone followed suit, eyes fixed on me once more. Let's begin, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of everything I had seen and everything I now needed to understand. Once we were all seated, the meeting began with a heavy silence before Benimaru stepped forward to speak. We were caught off guard, he admitted, his voice low with frustration. The town fell into chaos almost immediately after the barrier activated. Communication was disrupted, and without your presence, morale dropped sharply. It was all we could do to keep order. Next, Geld took over, his expression hard. Our defense lines held as best they could. My men fought to protect the civilians, but with the barrier suppressing magic, our options were limited. We sustained damage across the residential district and outer perimeter. Rigard bowed deeply before continuing the report. We've confirmed around 100 casualties, my lady. Mostly civilians caught in the crossfire or unable to escape in time. Homes were destroyed, supplies lost. The people are frightened. I gave a small nod, urging him to continue. His voice wavered slightly, but he pushed through. Repairs have already begun. Everyone is doing what they can to recover, but the pain runs deep. Then Ren stepped forward, her posture flawless, her voice quiet but perfectly clear. Regarding the enemy, this chaos was no coincidence. It began with 3 other worlders, aligned with the kingdom of Pharmus. They appeared without warning and launched an indiscriminate assault. Each possessed unique skills and demonstrated strength far beyond the ordinary. But more than that, their actions were deliberate, calculated. We believe they sought to provoke us. Her gaze moved across the room slowly, eyes half-lidded, as if she found the memory distasteful. Their sudden rampage spread confusion and fear. Amidst that turmoil, the Knights of Pharmus arrived. She exhaled softly through her nose, the only sign of emotion in her otherwise composed face. They claimed they came to investigate rumors of a monster nation. And yet, they arrived in full armor, mounted on horseback, swords drawn. One of them declared. Her voice shifted slightly, echoing the proclamation in a cold, clipped tone. We came here to investigate reports of a nation of monsters, and what manner of chaos do I find? In the name of humanity and the name of divinity, we promise to provide aid to our defenseless comrades. Then, she continued, quieter now, they attacked. Not just our forces, but residents, unarmed civilians. Even children. They never intended to speak. Only to kill. A beat of silence followed. Then Ren gave a slight tilt of her head, her smile razor-sharp in its politeness. If I may, investigators do not ride in formation, clad in polished steel. They do not raise swords the moment they arrive. No, they came prepared for war. Her words grew colder, the disdain just barely restrained beneath her soft tone. And in the name of humanity, they struck down innocents. In the name of divinity, they slaughtered children. What sort of gods do such people serve, I wonder? Ren's violet eyes gleamed coldly, as if her soul itself recoiled at the memory. Perhaps, she began in that serene, ever-graceful tone, this is what it means to be human. Her voice carried no anger, only venom hidden beneath immaculate poise. To raise banners of justice while butchering children. To brand others as monsters, then commit atrocities in the name of divinity, never once glancing in a mirror. I watched them swing their blades with righteous fury, as if slaughter was a sacred right. If that is the measure of humanity. She paused, eyes narrowing just slightly. Then I shall cast off any pride in being one of them. Silence followed, heavy, brittle, and chilling. Then came her next words, darker and more direct, though her delivery remained pristine. I propose we retaliate in kind. Slaughter them all, the knights, their leaders, their wives and children. If they call us monsters, then let us show them what a true monster looks like. The kingdom of Falmouth shall burn. Ren, I said sharply. She stopped. Her expression didn't shift, but her posture seemed to tighten slightly as I met her gaze. I won't allow that, I continued. Not the children, not the civilians. We're not like them. We don't win by becoming the very evil we suffered. Ren closed her eyes for a beat. When she opened them again, there was something softer, no, sadder lurking just behind the elegance. You are kind, far too kind for your own good, she said quietly. Since you command it, I will refrain from recommending we wipe out the entire kingdom. Her eyes opened again, sharp and resolute. However, I will not yield on this. I insist that the knights who raised their swords must all die. For our people, for those children who can no longer cry. Then, with a deep, perfect curtsy, she returned to her place. Her silence afterward spoke volumes. The room fell into a stillness so deep, I could hear the tremble in my own thoughts. Ren's voice still echoed faintly in the corners of the chamber. Her proposal hadn't been loud. She hadn't raised her voice or pounded the table. But the weight of her words, the entire army must be slaughtered, hung like a blade above everyone's head. She had meant every word. I could feel the shift in the room. Benimaru didn't move. He sat perfectly still, arms crossed, crimson eyes narrowed not at Ren, but at the implication. He wasn't shocked. He was considering it, judging it not by emotion, but by logic. Geld's massive form stiffened ever so slightly. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes usually full of dependable strength darted toward me for the briefest second, as if silently confirming that I'd keep her wrath in check. Rigurd, ever loyal, swallowed hard. His hands trembled slightly as he lowered them from the table. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. This was not the usual, gentle Ren who served me tea with a serene smile. This was something else entirely, something cold, merciless, and terrifying. Kaijin and the three dwarf brothers Garm, Dord, and Murd sat together in silence. They didn't speak a word. Their expressions mirrored those of the Kijin, grave, restrained, and deeply disturbed. Kaijin's jaw was locked tight, fists on his knees. Garm's face was unreadable. Murd and Dord both looked shaken, their eyes dark and hollow. Not anger, not disagreement, dread. Then there was Guard Emjalmile, sitting slightly apart from them, but well within earshot. When I first met him, he handled negotiations for our first mass-scale potion sale, charming nobles with the ease of a seasoned diplomat. Now, he looked like someone who had wandered into the den of a beast without realizing it. He hadn't said a word throughout the meeting. I'd invited Guard Emjalmile to gain a third-party opinion, an outsider's perspective on the events that had unfolded. Now, every eye in the room turned to me waiting. Just before I could speak, Seal turned her head toward Ren, her voice quiet but edged with cool chastisement. That would be unwise, Ren. If we annihilate the entire army, other human nations may begin to view us as a threat. It could provoke a united front against us. A flicker of relief settled in my chest. Right, of course. Seal was calm, composed. She would never. So instead, she continued smoothly, why don't we simply eliminate all human nations in one coordinated strike? That would solve the problem at its root. No humans, no problem. My breath caught figuratively, of course. Wait, what? Wait, that's even worse. She tilted her head slightly toward me, as if puzzled. Is that not acceptable, Master? No, it's definitely not. Inside, I was already spiraling. I could feel the certainty behind her words. Not rage, not malice, just clear, flawless logic. Which was even scarier. Across from her, Ren gave a small, satisfied nod. Like she approved of CL's thought process. I had to say something before they started drafting extermination plans. No, I said quietly, but the resolve in my voice made it final. We're not going to kill anyone. A pause. Seal remained silent, but I could feel it, the quiet pulse of emotion, flickering just beneath her calm presence beside me. Her dissatisfaction wasn't anger. It was concern, deep and singular. She didn't hate humanity. She didn't care about them at all. She cared about me. If removing every possible threat meant keeping me safe, then to her, it was the simplest, most natural choice. Seriously, she cares for me way too much, I thought, a small smile tugging at my lips. She hadn't said another word, but her attention never wavered. I could feel it, soft and constant. A steady warmth pressed close to my heart, quiet but absolute. As if to say, no matter what you decide, Master, I'll follow you. Always. And I believed her. That unspoken vow wrapped around me like a second skin. Strong, comforting, intimate. It made my chest tighten, not with anxiety, but something softer. Something that made me feel loved. Meanwhile, Ren remained behind me, composed as ever. To the others, she was still the perfect maid. But to me, she was sulking, just a little. As you wish, my lady, she said smoothly. But I caught at the faintest, most imperceptible pout clinging to the edge of her voice. Her lips didn't move out of line, her posture didn't falter, but I knew. She's totally pouting, I sighed inwardly. Like I just told her she couldn't buy ice cream. Never mind that what I'd actually refused was the complete annihilation of a kingdom. Still, the moment she gave in, the room shifted. The tension in the air eased. As the tension in the air finally began to ease, I let out a quiet breath, not that I needed to breathe, but it helped me feel grounded. Guard Emjalmile remained seated, thoughtful as ever. After a brief pause, he finally spoke, his voice low and even. From him, I heard what I needed, his honest opinion and a calm, reasoned explanation for why Falmouth might have attacked our nation. His insight, coming from a place entirely removed from Tempest, was invaluable. With that, the meeting shifted into deeper discussion. We debated strategies, weighed possibilities, and exchanged thoughts on what steps to take moving forward. Nothing was decided yet, but everything that needed to be said, was said. And for now, that was enough. To be continued.